You know, I've always thought we talk about our moms a lot.
Yeah.
And we give them the respect that they deserve, but we only give them one day, like Mother's Day. I feel like we should change that, make it Mother's Week. So starting right now, I'm starting with Mother's Week. Do you guys like that?
I always felt like when you at home, what's the first question that you ask when you walk through the door? Where's your mother?
Where's Mom?
Absolutely. Where's your mother? Where's your mother? So,
and what are we eating?
My kids will run right past me. Like, Mom.
Right.
You're invisible to them.
Yeah. What's the first question you ask? Where's your mother? Yeah. That's it. So
literally, you're next. They'll say you're next. You're next.
I mean, I don't think it's a Mother's Week, Tone. I mean, like, you can't really put a price on a mother.
No.
I
know. Every day.
Another year, but I'm just saying in terms of the day.
I know. It doesn't seem like enough.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And let's be honest, what do we do on Mother's Day typically? We typically have our moms, cook, or they go do something. They deserve a day to themselves.
You do that? Mm-hmm. You make your mom cook?
No. Well, I have a grandma, so but yeah, no, she's always doing something. She's always doing something for us. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you, Fluent.
Yeah, so in the spirit of Mother's Week,
mm-hmm.
we brought two of them. First, we're bringing them together, but first we have Dr. O'Neill, the mother of friend of the show, Shaquille O'Neal.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Michelle Carter, for those that don't know, the mother of Vince Carter, mm-hmm. who me and her are going to have a little conversation too, by the way. But I'm going to save that till later. So I would love to introduce and bring on Dr. Michelle Carter and Dr. O'Neill. Thank you for joining us on this Mother's Day special. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Hello, ladies. How are things?
Wonderful.
Great.
Well, it's so nice to have you both here with us today. We have a lot to get into. We don't want to take too much of your time up, but I want to ask, before Shaq and before Vince and before the NBA and all that came from that, I want to know who both of you ladies were prior to having your children. I know both of you have, more than one child, obviously. But we'll start with you, Dr. O'Neill. Who were you before Shaq came along?
I was Lucille O'Neill, freshly out of high school
mm-hmm.
when Shaquille was born. Young teenager living in Newark, New Jersey, looking forward to life.
Mm-hmm.
Thought about college, but didn't get there till later.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, I was just a young mother looking to find out what should I do with this young man child now. It was hard then, but it's so much better now.
It must be tough having a 3-foot 3-month-old.
No. We're not gonna go there. No.
Was he not a very big baby?
He was average baby. He grew.
Mm.
So he was born weighing 7 pounds and
oh wow,
11 ounces. See, look, lucky numbers. 7'11".
7'11", right.
Well, average size baby, but grew into this beautiful, handsome man that you all know as Shaq.
Mm.
But to me, he is still Shaquille. My little one.
Your little one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dr. Carter, how about you?
Well, I was Michelle Harris and grew up in Miami with 2 sisters and went to college because my parents said, you will go to college. And did well in school, went into industry and worked there for 3 years before I began teaching business.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1977, Vince Carter came along. And young mother, and my husband and I trying to figure this parenting thing out. And I think we did okay. And the rest is history.
Sure. Dr. O'Neill, you are trying to figure this out as a young mother, and you got this boy. What's the idea in terms of sports? Is that something that's realistic at the time, or you just trying to figure this out as a mother?
You know, when our children are born, we're not thinking about sports. We're not thinking about anything. We're thinking about trying to care for them.
Mm-hmm.
But Shaquille played basketball from the time he was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So as they grow, we get them involved in what we call the extracurricular activities. So they need something to burn off that energy. So Shaquille has always been in sports. He played baseball, played football, basketball. Mm-hmm. He came to love that more than any sport. Mm-hmm. But I think that sports is really great for all children. They need something to do.
Sure. Sure.
Dr. Carter, so I have a history with Vince. We're going to get to that a little bit later. I'm here in Toronto. You don't know that. We'll get along though. We'll get along. I promise. Okay. But when did you, like, as you're seeing him kind of grow and develop, when does it click for you that this might be more than just a way to burn off some fuel, burn off some energy? This might be a way for him to make a living.
Well, like Lucille said, when you're new to parenthood and you're trying to figure things out and you don't want to make mistakes, you get your children involved. Then started playing soccer at 5.
Okay.
Excelled at that, and of course was the tallest little 5-year-old soccer player on the field. Mm-hmm. Then it went to football, and he was a pretty good quarterback. And then at 7, he started playing organized basketball, but he had a Nerf basketball in his hand from the time my husband and my brother-in-law could prop him up on pillows, and I threatened to kill them if they let him fall, because they were determined he could get the feel of the Nerf basketball. He fell in love, I think, with that Nerf basketball at like 2-3 months old. Mm-hmm. And then it went from there. Made his first basket on a regulation goal at 2. Mm-hmm. Because he kept trying and kept trying and kept trying, got mad, plopped down on the driveway, started crying. I made him get up, brush himself off, and keep trying. And so he made it at 2. And, from 7 years old, the organized basketball started. By the time he got to high school, he was still playing the 2 sports, football and basketball. But he was growing so fast, getting so tall, and he was very wiry. And all I could think about as a quarterback is some linebacker who's trying to get a scholarship to college is going to tear those knees up. Yeah. And it's all going to be over. Everything will be over. So I told him, I said, you're not going to college and play 2 sports, because I don't see how you're going to keep your grades up, because I don't play about my grades. Mm-hmm. And of course, then he tells me about Charlie Ward. Okay, so I said, you're not Charlie Ward, and pick one. Mm-hmm. Picked basketball, which I was so thankful, and it just took off from there.
Sure. And shout out to Charlie Ward, Heisman Trophy winner in football, and goes on to have a great career for the Knicks.
The 10th grader gave me a tough argument.
Yeah. I'm sure he did.
Well, Dr. O'Neill, obviously, I think children can be like a mirror image of you, but sometimes they have, I would say, traits that are very different from you. With Shaq, or Shaquille, were there any traits that maybe it started in middle school, high school, that, you saw them and you're like, okay, this is going to be difficult, this is going to be tough, but maybe along the way or later in his career grew into something that was, helped him along, whether it was discipline or being stubborn, or was there a trait that came up early on?
It's amazing how our children take on a lot of our traits. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I tell all of my children, there's something that's unique about you. You don't have to be like me. But because of the influence we have on them, they're going to have some of those traits. Now, Shaquille is mean. He's tough on the basketball court. We all, as a family, have that competitive spirit, okay? Mm-hmm. You don't mess with the big man when he's out there working. But he is such a kind and gentle person when you get to know him. And those are some of the things that we instilled in him. Be kind to people. Mm-hmm. Love people. Be gentle with people. And over the years, it has worked for our family. All of my children have a kind spirit in them, but you don't mess with the O'Neill family, okay? Period. I'm just going to say that. Yeah. I'm just going to say that. But what I love about him is that he is able to adapt in any situation. Mm-hmm. He can be kind, he can be mean, but at the end of the day, kindness and love overrules it all. And that's some of the traits that my mother instilled in us, to love people. And so, of course, I instilled it in him, and my husband Phil. We all instilled that in him, Jamal, Latifah, and Aisha, the whole crew.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Carter, you actually segued into something that I thought was really important. You mentioned that you don't play about your grades. You don't play about your grades. So, ladies, when these kids started getting involved in sports, we have a tendency as athletes to kind of gravitate toward the sport and move away from the grades just a little bit. How did you keep those two on track?
Oh, in my house, the motto is no grades, no play.
There it is.
Period.
And our motto was no pass, no play.
Mm-hmm.
You pass the curriculum, you pass the grade, then you get the opportunity to play. So we always put grades ahead of everything.
That's why they call it a student athlete.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Sure.
Indeed. They got to know the meaning, right, Michelle?
Sure.
They got to know what that means.
Absolutely.
I tell it's interesting. It's so, because it's so tough, right? So hats off, to both of you for keeping that, because it's so tough to keep people in line, kids in line, because they want to do their things. People are telling them how great they are. I coach youth basketball, and I keep telling them the likelihood of making the NBA, you have better odds of being struck by lightning twice, right? But your grades, your schoolwork, that degree, that will be forever. Now, they don't always listen. So along that vein, they get to that point now. So the grades are good. They're clearly talented enough to go to university. Shaquille selects LSU. Obviously, Vince selects UNC. Is that a preference of yours? Was there a conversation? Did they make that decision on their own? Did you have rooting interests in other schools? It's okay to say it now. We won't get in trouble from the NCAA.
Well, we always encourage them to make the decision for themselves. They have to be the ones to go to the school, the university, college, or whatever, and they have to participate in what's going on there. We can't do that for them. So I encourage my son to just make the choice for himself. Mm-hmm. We build relationships along the way, and Coach Brown is a good man. He's a good man. So there was a relationship before he went to college in some way. But what I say to any college student or anyone that is looking forward to going to college and has a dream, just make sure it's what you want to do. Now, mama and daddy, they're going to want you to do something else. That's true. But the decision has to be theirs. And so we made it clear. Shaquille, you want to go to LSU? Okay. That's the one you're going to go to. It's on you. And I want to say this too. I think that's the best way to do it, because we push our children into something that we see that we want for them, but it's not always what they want for themselves.
Sure.
I actually talk about this extensively in my new book, which I know we're going to talk about a little later. Mm-hmm. But with Vincent, 77 schools recruited him. So my role, or our role as parents, was to help him narrow it down to one. You can only matriculate at one school at a time. Mm-hmm. So 76 schools are going to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. This kid is 17 years old. We've got to help him navigate through this. So I developed a chart. We looked at the pros and cons of each school. I still have every recruiting letter in alphabetical order.
To this day? To this day?
To this day.
Wow, that's
so we got down to a manageable number, and then to the final 6, and to the final 4, and then the final 1. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was the final 6 schools were Kansas, Kentucky, Florida, Florida State, UNC, and Duke. Mm-hmm. Pretty good choices.
Yeah.
But as Lucille said, at the end of the day, the final decision from those 6 had to be Vince Carter's, because he's got to go to class. He's got to study. And even though the world may tell you when you at 18, you're grown, you aren't grown at 18 in no black mama house that I know.
I was not. at
It's
18
not
years
that
old. No, I was not.
It's not that different in a Greek house either. Just
Okay. Okay.
I was not.
That rule,
Mhm.
you know, don't make me have to have a meeting with Dean Smith and say his grades are what?
No,
Okay, so
we don't want to do that.
what do you
No,
want to do about this?
no, we don't
grades
want to
for
do that.
what? So I never, thank goodness I never had to do that.
Mhm.
But he chose UNC.
Mhm.
I want to add something else. Silently, the
Mhm.
world thinks that we're not involved. We stay involved
To this day.
from beginning
To this
up
day.
until this day. We
Sure.
are still involved.
Yeah.
And so we don't push them out there and say, no, you're going to do it for yourself. No, we stay involved, and we are the cushion,
Yes.
part of the foundation that is laid before they even leave home.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that they can always come back and just bounce so many things off of us. They wait for our opinion, and we give it to them.
Mhm.
But we never encourage them to do what we want them to do. It's what
Right.
they want to do.
Now, Dr. O'Neill, you made it clear that you thought that Larry Brown was a good man. Was there anybody?
Dale Brown. I
don't know what I'm thinking.
you think of Larry Brown and the other
Yeah, Coach Dale. I'm sorry, Coach Dale Brown. You thought he was a good man. Man, was there anybody in particular during that recruitment process that completely turned you off? You know what? You're not going there. No, we're not going to that school.
No. You know why? Because out of all of them that recruited him, all the
Mhm.
schools, we really didn't know anybody.
Mhm.
We didn't know anybody. You know, for a while, they were just a name to us until they didn't have internet then. So we had to
Right.
find a way to research them. And the
Right.
information we found out, you know, it was all good. It was nothing
Mhm.
bad. But still, you don't know. You don't know what to say. And every school that sends a letter, the letter is beautiful. They paint a pretty picture, but it's always different. And that's not only for schools, it's for anything. They paint a pretty picture, but it's going to be different when you get there.
Yes.
You'll see the real deal. So, you know, we take our chances and we believe and pray that it's going to work.
Was it like that? Was it like that for you, Dr. Carter?
It was, you know, back then people actually wrote letters.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually read letters back and forth. And like Lucille said, the letters were very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Those who were on top of their recruiting game, if they were really interested, and you could tell by the volume of letters, you know, you go on your official visit. When you go on the official visit, it's the best dog and pony show you ever want to see in your life. Everything is perfect. The world is perfect.
Mhm.
But parents have to be smart enough to know that they cannot sustain that day to day. They cannot. And so you ask around, you talk to others. I talk to other students. I talk to parents of students that went there, and you get a better picture, a clearer picture of what the day-to-day life is at that particular university. And, you know, Vince came from a disciplined home. There were rules. You were expected to follow the rules. That doesn't change because you go to college. There will be rules. You will be expected to follow the rules. If you don't, there are consequences. You've got coaches and assistant coaches. And lo and behold, just like the students I taught, and when I was in administration, I tell them, the teacher needs to handle this in the classroom. You don't want this to get to Ms. Carter.
No.
Because then, Houston, we got a problem. So it was the same thing at home. You know, you're an adult, and first of all, they're not going to discuss it with me. But as a parent, and especially if your child is involved in sports, you're watching the games. You can tell when things, at least I could tell when things weren't quite right. I saw Vince's freshman year, his playing time started dwindling and dwindling. I immediately called and set up an appointment with Coach Smith.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so we had 2 such meetings. He assured me everything was fine, but I could see my son's body language at the game or on television. Everything wasn't fine with him. Something was not right. Okay, so we talked about it, come up with a game plan. Sophomore year, 180. Then things really started taking off. Because it wasn't until between the summer of Vince's sophomore year at UNC that Mom declared, this boy looked like he's NBA ready.
Mm.
And people are surprised at that because they think it wasn't until then. For Mom, it wasn't until then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because people sometimes see the talent on the court and don't factor in the maturity off the court that you need as well to make that leap, right, to the pros. So you mentioned something, Dr. O'Neill, you mentioned about what you wanted, and we never pushed what you wanted. But I got to ask this question because Michael Jordan's dad famously said if he didn't play basketball, he'd be pumping gas somewhere. So this is a two-parter for both of you. If they didn't end up becoming professional basketball players, what do you realistically think they would have ended up doing? And what, I know you're not going to push them, but what would you have wanted them to be or to do with their lives? Again, if basketball was off the table.
Mm-hmm.
I'm simple. I wanted my son to just be an upstanding citizen of these United States. Whatever job he preferred, that's what I want you to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe he would have been involved with children some kind of way because we were in the military for 20 years. We always worked with the youth and the youth activities programs. And so we have a love for building up young people. And I could see him being a gym teacher, guidance counselor, or a teacher. Shaquille is very big on building up youth.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine walking into that gym as a kid and that's your gym teacher?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I would love it. I had some teachers that were tall when I was going to school, and I love those teachers standing above all of us and caring about us and making sure we were taken care of. And I could see Shaquille doing that.
It's interesting you mentioned that too, Miss Dr. O'Neill, because my 8th grade teacher, Miss Marion was a giant to me, but to this day, she's my favorite teacher, my 8th grade teacher. It's interesting you mentioned that.
Out. Yeah.
Yes, she was like a giant to me. Every time I saw her, I was like, wow. But everything she said to me, I paid attention to though. I did, 100%.
Yes. Because I used to tell Shaquille when he started growing, a head above, I said, people going to be looking up to you. You got to give them something to look up to you for.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I always believed that he was being set up way back then for a leadership position.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, with hindsight being in play, Vince does very well at broadcasting. Never had any real formal training other than I strongly encouraged, I will say, him to take a seminar at Syracuse University that was done by ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want to go. And I paid the registration fee. I believe it was $5,700. And got the plane ticket and said, "You're going."
See that influence.
This was between his sophomore and junior year in college.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so broadcasting is probably something which he is doing now that he would have done anyway because he loves sports and he speaks well. And so you pull all of that together. And then being a business teacher, this is one of the career exploration to younger kids, to junior high school kids I used to teach many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I too believe that, I would have wanted Vince to do something in education. He comes from a family of educators. And and this is what we do. This is what we know. And trying to educate the whole child, not just whatever your particular major is, if it's business or science or whatever. But kids need nurturing outside of the classroom. Yep. Some teachers are willing to do that, others are not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you can't have too many people looking out for you and educating you, and especially today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Dr. O'Neill and Dr. Carter, as we could probably track both of your sons' career, just from the outside, but I want to hear, starting with you, Dr. O'Neill, from that moment where, okay, college is almost over. I know Shaq went 3 years, I believe, right, at LSU before he moved on. But so what was that moment where he knew he was going to be, begin transitioning over to the NBA. What was that process like? And what were the emotions going on? Because I'm sure there was emotions going on that maybe he wouldn't allow the outside world to see, that you talked through with him and you kind of held his hand through those issues.
Well, he came to us and he said, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to hear from him because personally, I wanted him to stay in school and finish the 4 years because I believe that he needed that. And he told me, he said, the time is now. I learned something during that process, that we need to listen to our children, okay? So he let us know that he was ready, but he made me a promise because he knew I was adamant about, no, you're not going yet.
Yeah.
He made me a promise that he would go back and finish, and he did that. He held up his promise. I'm so happy that he set a standard for the rest of my children. He paid for all of us to go to college as well. And I'm really proud of him for making that decision on his own, because they have to know for themselves when the time is. They were in an atmosphere where we didn't always know what was going on. And if you watched him, like you say you did, you saw how he was getting beat up in the paint. And he was so strong. He said, I need to go on to the next level. He knew that. I need to go on to the next level. So you know what we did? We got right behind him. And we encouraged him to just go out there, take a step. It's called faith.
Yeah.
And he went out there and he was the #1 pick.
Numero uno. That's incredible, Dr. O'Neal.
Yeah. What was that? When you saw his name called in that draft, what were you thinking? What were those emotions
I
like?
was so happy. I was so happy. And I have to tell you that our lives changed in that second. But
Just
I
like
was
that.
so happy for him because of the dream that he had for himself. He told us, I want to go to the NBA. So we said, okay, well, to get there, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And every step that he was able to take, it got him closer to the NBA family. And he was the #1 draft pick. And I am so proud of him today. I'm happy for him. I'm just overwhelmed with peace and happiness for him and his life and how he's gotten from that little man child I was holding, back in 1972 up until this day.
So Dr. Carter, your draft day was a little bit different. So Vince gets drafted by one team, but same night traded to another team, to another country.
Yes.
What was that kind of experience like? Obviously, I'm not sure there's joy for him getting drafted, but when you find out he's been traded to the get choked up here by Toronto Raptors, what does that feel like? Is there oh my God, it's another country? Is this a whole? Is there some fear there as well because of the unknown? Or you're like, oh, Toronto's a big city, it's fine. Like what's going through yours and Vince's mind, I guess, at that point?
Well, first of all, Vince completed 3 years at UNC. Freshman year, when he's going to college, first day of college, parents are taking him east in the car. I asked him to sign a simple contract that I actually wrote out on a napkin in the car, that he would, if he left early, because of the traditions at UNC with Michael Jordan and a lot of other players leaving early, that he would go back and complete his studies and get his bachelor's degree. He signed that and he did that.
He did that, absolutely.
After the junior year, Vince was kind of torn between not foregoing his senior year. He loved UNC.
So he wasn't sure if he wanted to leave. He wasn't. He was on the fence about it. Okay.
He was not sure. He felt he was ready.
Yeah.
But then I did my due diligence. I called the NBA office. I called everyone that I knew that had positions, administrative positions in the NBA, like San Antonio Spurs, the president there, I think his title is president now, R.C. Buford, was an assistant coach at Florida when they recruited Vince. So I called R.C. What are you hearing? What's your opinion? I even talked to Coach Krzyzewski, our big rival. And I figured Coach Krzyzewski is going to tell me the truth, or either he's going to say, oh yeah, he needs to go because he don't want to go for another year.
I don't want to play against him.
But Coach Krzyzewski told me he is ready. He's ready. So we enter into the draft. I'd done my due diligence. I presented my information to Vince. He felt comfortable. Now, you try out for teams ahead of time. So going to Toronto was not a surprise. We knew going in that he was going to go number 4 to Toronto. And then we get there, and there's a little deal thing going behind the scenes. I think Dallas was involved in it in something else in Golden State. And so he's picked by Golden State at 5. His teammate, Antoine Jameson, goes to Toronto at 4. Antoine didn't even work out for Toronto. So the agent leaned over to me. He said, let me find out what's going on here. So then he came back and said, just be still. Everything is going to be okay. And sure enough, we hear David Stern say, there's been a trade. And I noticed Vince and Antoine was standing in the hallway. They hadn't moved. So I figured the trade involved the two of them. And so other than playing as teammates at UNC, Antoine and Vince will always be joined together.
Sure,
yeah. Dr. Carter, we get to the NBA, and now Vince is successful, Shaq is successful, but as a black man, I know how important it is to graduate college. I know how big a deal it is to graduate college. And I didn't appreciate the backlash that Vince got during that playoff when he jumped on a plane and went to go visit. I mean, we went to go back to his graduation. I didn't appreciate that at all because, again, as a black man, I know how important it is for our families to be able to say, I graduated from college. If Mama Lucille is my mother, she's holding up her head high because she knows I graduated from college. And to try to deny him of that or to ridicule him of that, I didn't appreciate that at all. I didn't.
Well, there are several points about that. Number one, it's you're a black male in this world, and don't you ever forget that. You need as much education as you can get.
Yes, ma'am.
Basketball can last for 22 years, or it could have lasted for 2 years.
Right.
Okay. Then you're not vested. You don't have retirement in the National Basketball Association. So now you got to go out and get a job.
Right.
The idea to deny a parent that joy, that blessing of seeing their child walk across the stage and receive that degree, it aggravated me, made me very angry, because those people who were critical of that, I bet their parents saw them get their degrees.
I'm sure they did.
But it's okay for me not to see my son get.
Yeah, I will say this. I think the criticism, wrongly, by the way, the criticism had more to do with the fact that, one, people don't understand there's bigger things than sport in life, and two, listen, there was a shot at the end of the game and he missed, and everyone wanted to make an excuse, and the excuse was, oh, it's because he went to his graduation.
No,
that's not true. You sometimes just miss shots. I think that was unfair. I think that was unfair criticism.
A reporter said that to me, and I remember distinctly. I turned to the gentleman. I said, "Sir, do you want me to tell you what happened on Saturday evenings or the evenings before NBA games with players? Because by that time, we've been in this thing 3 years at that point.
Right.
So I've observed some things. Okay. We were in bed probably by 10 o'clock, everybody, the whole party, because we had to get up very early. Graduation started at 9 o'clock that morning, and we knew we had a long day, jumping on a private jet after that to get to Philadelphia. And players go out and play. So you're going to tell me, because the player got up at 9 o'clock, and trust me, Vince did not stand in the line, wait for the procession to start. He was treated like King Vince Carter with sofas and all this kind of stuff, and then when it's time for him to go out, they rush him so he can get right in the spot, maybe 2 or 3 kids before him, and he walks out. So there was no anything. It was probably one of the most restful 24 hours before a game that he has had.
Right.
And you're going to tell me that's why he missed the shot? You
No.
sound like an idiot saying that.
No.
A bona fide idiot.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Dr. O'Neill. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, over the years that we've dealt with people and their criticism, you learn how to turn a deaf ear, okay? Because everybody got an opinion and they have to say what they're going to say. But for our sons, it was not even about us getting the joy. It was about them. Yeah. They got that education for them so that they can say, I am a college graduate. Yes. And I always told Shaquille, I said, you don't have to impress anybody anymore. I said, you just live. You just live and you do what makes you happy. The college education, I mean, that's something so rewarding for any individual to be able to go through those years of college and come out with that piece of paper. Yeah. And it's not the fact that they were given it, it wasn't given to them and what they paid for when they paid their tuition, but they didn't have to pay to get the degree. They did the work. They did the work. Yes.
And no matter what happened
had to go to 3
they'll always have it, right?
This had to go to 3 summers of summer school. Now, imagine this. I believe his first contract was $3.2 million or something like that. So when Vince was drafted, we were in a lockout in the NBA. Yeah. Right. We didn't start back playing to January of '99. So he immediately went back to summer session B, only because summer session A was already going on. He went back to summer session B and he started working on that year that he had left. So you are a millionaire and you're sitting in classes in summer school. But that's how important that degree and getting that education was to Vince Carter.
I also think too, Dr. Carter, is we have a deal. As my mother, I gave you my word. I gave you you and I talked before this whole thing went down, and I told you, Mom, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my degree. So more than anything, the respect that I have for you as my mother, the respect that I have for you as my mother. Ma, I said I was going to do this. I gave you my word that I was going to do this, and I'm going to do this. No matter how much money I make, no matter how big a deal I am, you are my mother, and I have that respect for you.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a big driving force. Okay, I know we have you ladies for only a few more minutes, but before we let you go, Dr. O'Neill, do you have a favorite memory, game, event that happened throughout Shaquille's career that you remember or that stands out to you?
I love to tell this story because it is just funny.
Let us have it.
But I love to tell the story because when we were coming up and Shaquille was a baby and we were trying to make it, you know, all the mothers had a layaway plan. We would put stuff on layaway. Okay, I'm giving you a few dollars this week, and then I'll be back in another week. I'll give you some more. We would do that until whatever we wanted was paid for.
Right.
So after Shaquille got drafted and we were shopping for things for his home, we went into a store where they sold stereo equipment. And he starts saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. You know, stereo equipment is very expensive. So we got to the counter and the man, he added up all the things Shaquille wanted. It came to $10,000. And I'm like, whoa. So I asked the man, do you have a layaway plan?
Don't worry about it, Mama. We got it. We don't got to do that no more, Mama. We don't have to do that no more.
He said, Mommy, you go over there with Daddy. You go over there with Jamal and Tifa. And me and Daddy, we got this.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Mama.
I'll never forget it because he said, we don't have to do that anymore.
We don't got to do that no more.
Me. I made away everything so that they could have. I had to get used to that. But it's so funny, but I appreciate the fact that he said, Mommy, we don't have to do that anymore.
We don't got to do that no more.
We don't have to do that anymore. I'm telling you, that brings me so much joy. That story.
Yeah. But there's a great story of him later on where he goes into, I think it's like Walmart or something, and says, what's on layaway? And he pays it off for everybody else.
I've seen that. Yeah.
You know, we've talked about it a little bit, and Dr. Carter, we want to get to your story too, but I want to put this out there because I know we're running short on time. Both of you, because there's a lot that can go wrong, especially when you throw a bunch of money at a young kid.
Oh,
both of you have done a phenomenal job. Like, if you look at Shaq, if you look at Vince and their lives, sure, there's this, that, the other, on the court, off the court stuff. But I mean, as men, you both raised two exceptionally fine young men. Like, we've had a chance to speak with them, and they're good people, and they're charitable, and so, you know, hats off.
That's a testament to you guys. That's a testament to you guys. 100%.
That's my nephew, Vince Carter.
Look here, all by the grace of God. I give God all the glory, because you're right. Things could have gone way bad.
Yeah.
But we were.
Do you have a moment? Dr. Carter, where that happened for you?
The thing, as I'm reflecting, I reflected on the 22 years that he did in NBA, which he holds the record for, and it will be probably broken in short order. But I always thought about how Vince made a commitment. His oldest daughter, Kai. I don't care where Vince was playing, what state. On the first day of school, Vince was going to be there to take Kai into her class on the first day of school. He did that from kindergarten and her senior year, which she's graduating in a couple of weeks from high school. And I said to him, I said, Vince, I said, okay, Kai's a senior in high school. She's driving to school now. He looked at me and said, and what's your point? You're not going to go walk her into her class her senior year.
Yes, I am. He
said, I'm gonna be right there in that parking lot.
Yes, and I will.
Be 10 minutes, pulling that spot 10 minutes before class at least. And so he calls me on the phone. He said, Mom, see, this is what I'm talking about. She got that car. She's a senior. She's got 5 minutes to get to class. As soon as class got out of the car, he said, now see, here she comes flying in here, and she's crooked in that parking space.
I love it. I love it. I love that stories aren't basketball stories.
Real quick, ladies, before you go, Dr. O'Neill, you have a quote that I stand on. I've actually adopted it, and it is, book sense plus common sense makes perfect sense. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
I stress the importance of education as well in our home. And so I believe that what you learn in the classroom, what you learn in the world, and then the sense that we call common, it's not always common, but at least the sense and the wisdom and the knowledge that we have, it makes good sense when we encourage to pass it on to someone else. So because I stress education, I talk to my grandchildren now about going to college. And I think it's important that what we know and learn, that we begin to share so that the legacy lives on. And then what we have, we don't hold it. We just push it out there. You know, the village where I grew up, it has crumbled. But we can begin to build the village up again. So I believe in that. And we as a family, we come together. And now Shaquille is the elder. Got 15 grandchildren. I got 2 great-grandchildren. So we pass all those things down that we've learned along the way. And so that's why book sense.
Dr.
First
Carter,
of all, with common sense makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
I might steal that one. I like
no,
that.
don't worry about stealing it, Tone. Don't worry about stealing that, Tone. That's all me. Go get your own. I got that one. No.
So, Dr. Carter, you have a book, The Making of Vince Carter.
I do.
For us here in Toronto, we know about the Carter effect, right, that Vince had on an entire country. So when does this book come out, and what are we going to find some stuff that we can use in there too?
It is out. Its pre-sales are on Amazon. And a lot of what we talked about today, I actually talk about it in the book. And there is a section on Toronto, Tony.
Just so you know, I don't know what it says in there, but I want you to know from my perspective. I was born here. I left. I came back. But we appreciate you. We appreciate Vince. All that other stuff is in the past. We love you. Anytime you guys want to come back, you have open arms back in Toronto. I know it didn't end so great, but it was 50-50, everybody's fault. So I love
Toronto. I love the city. I watch the players play because I'm pro, and I call them kids because they're a lot younger than me. But anything young people are trying to do to better themselves, to educate themselves, to be good citizens, like Lucille said, I am all for it. And the city is beautiful, and we had some wonderful times there. Wonderful times. I mean, I bought a condo there. because I thought it was going to be forever. But you know,
Well, I
that
wish
was
we had another hour.
Yes. Thank
I
you very
know.
much, ladies. We love you. Thank you
I
very much.
want to put this out. So
Thank you.
final words. Obviously, we have you guys didn't hear this. This was pre-live, so I want to say it for everybody that's live because Dr. Michelle Carter is half mom, half amazing, and the Diesel mom. Any final words before we let? I know you guys have a busy day. Anything before we let you go? Happy Mother's Day. Let me say that. Any final words, Dr. O'Neill?
Well, I do want to say Happy Mother's Day to all of the ones that are listening, and especially a Happy Mother's Day to you, my sister, my friend, Michelle. We are so excited for the experience, and thank you for giving us this experience today as well.
Absolutely.
You all be blessed.
Thank you
And
for coming through.
we'll see you all again
100%.
soon.
Yes,
Happy
ma'am.
Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Special Happy Mother's Day to Lucille O'Neill. And I have to say this, you know, when Vince came into the league, I think Shaq had been in the league maybe 4 or 5 years at that point. And we had our organization, the Mothers of Professional Basketball Players. This lady took me under her wing and showed me the ropes. At this point, I'm a retired business teacher, and I'm going into this. It's not like you have any experience helping your son as you have all of his life and navigating through the other stuff, navigating through teams and all of that stuff. And Lucille has been very helpful, still very helpful to me to this day. And I thank you.
Lucille, I to let you go just on the last, because you head up or founded the, I think it's called the
Mothers Association.
Mothers.
No.
Association?
Let me explain.
Yeah.
I was not the founder. I was one of the 23 founding members. And we formed an organization called the Mothers of Professional Basketball Players Incorporated.
Incorporated. Okay.
Incorporated. So we're official. Ladies, thank you very much. We
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Mama O'Neill, Dr. Carter.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Take care, guys.
Bye, ladies.
Take care, ladies.
God bless you too.
Take care, ladies.
Congratulations, Michelle, on the book. I'm waiting for my autograph copy.
You know you got
it. Bye now.
Bye, guys.
Ladies.
So much.
Yep. It was awesome. So dope. So dope.
That was sweet. That was so sweet.
Dope.
I needed another hour.
I
have
know.
4 more
We could have.
needed another hour.
We could have easily went another hour with them.
The stories.
We could have
the
easily
stories.
gone another hour with them. 100%, man.
There were some
You know,
embarrassing things we needed to get out. And,
I know. We had to dig a little deeper.
I think Miss Michelle and I might have to do a one-on-one just on Toronto. That might be an
Yeah,
hour just
you
right there.
definitely should.
Vince been up there. Vince played up there. What, Tone? 7 years, 8 years? He played up there.
The first 7, 8 years of his
I think he played 7. So you can imagine all the stuff, or all the information she got. Right. Well, her living up there, him being up there.
I feel so it's so horrible how it all turned out though, because people forget, like people want to blame Vince because it's easy to blame the player, but like Toronto was chaos. Like the GMs, the ownership was just in turmoil throughout that time. It was literally kind of the perfect storm of bad stuff happening, and it was just easy to blame. People blamed her, and it wasn't
Right.
It wasn't her, it wasn't Vince, it was literally everybody just needed a better conversation.
Plus, you got to remember too, Tone. I mean, when he gets up there, the Raptors are still in infancy. What is it, 98? When he shows up there, and the Raptors
99, yeah, they've been around for 3-4 years. Yeah.
Right. 3-4 years. They and not only have they only been around for 3-4 years, you get this mega star who's basically introducing basketball on a professional level to the NBA, to the world. A guy like Vince Carter, who's a superstar.
You guys wouldn't believe it was so. As a guy who played basketball, right? So I've been watching basketball for 20 years at this point, or whatever, 20. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is to see the first telecasts, and they're showing clips of like the Huskies against the Knickerbockers, the first professional,
like 47, right?
And they're explaining the rules, like you get 2 points when the ball goes in the basket. I'm like, oh my, like how
I can't watch this anymore.
and they're trying to relate it to hockey, right? Because everyone's watching. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like there are guys that are coming up here not realizing like you know, the basketball knowledge for the most part, like to the casual fan, was like, you think people are casuals now. I mean,
no clue.
Yeah, OG casuals. Yeah.
And then like,
no clue.
Yeah, and then once Vince gets here and that dunk contest, I was going to ask her this. We ran out of time. Like Jack Armstrong, who's like the voice of the Raptors, we've had him on before, was like, when right after that 2000 dunk contest, he goes, it was like traveling with Vince and the team. It was like traveling with the Beatles. It was chaos. And so to have this fan base that just is just not where they need to be, and then this mega star who's, you know, literally overnight basketball courts popping up all over our country, not a city, a country,
the entire country.
It was just
not just Toronto. Same thing with Shaq, man. Same thing with Shaq. When Shaq became the big deal that he became, it was incredible how people just gravitated toward him. Like how his mother said, one of the best humans that I've ever been around, 100%. But the thing that was the coolest is like we would go places and people didn't realize how big he actually was. So we would
like in person.
Yeah, people didn't know how big he actually was. Right. So we would go into restaurants.
Fingertips came up to here. And I'm not little. Like I got a 7 wingspan. Like I'm not little. So small. Yeah.
And we would go into places. We would go to restaurants and stuff like that. And people would be in awe of how big he is. And me being the goofball that I can be, I would walk past people and I'd be like, he's a lot bigger in person than what you thought, isn't he? And the people be like, oh, can you imagine this? And I'm like, yo, he's huge, isn't he? And like, yeah, I gotta stand on the chair to talk to him in his ear. And I'm not a small dude. So yeah, absolutely.
I could see you just walking by someone and be like, if you think he's big, imagine how big Shaq is.
Yeah, you should always be the first one to go into a room and then Well, Jay, where did Shaq get that? Is there like a grandpa or an uncle, or was it just straight genetic?
The whole family.
Well, first of all, his mother is the same size as me.
Yeah, I was gonna say
she's not a small. Yeah, his mother's not a small woman. His mother's. She's not that much. I mean, we around the same size.
Wow.
Yeah, she and I are around the same size, and his father was tall too. So I mean,
genetic.
So hey, we're gonna end it, but there was a couple of super chats, so I feel like we should. Sports PSP said, hey, Mama on Mother's Day, so. I can't play it; it's copywritten. So, but yes,
unfortunately,
that's the song of the day. And then win hosts, win show, win moms. That's absolutely
fine.
Thank you so much. We have to re-air this obviously on Sunday. But when we got the call late last night that we had a scheduling change and we couldn't do this because this was supposed to be 1 p.m. on Mother's Day.
That's what we were going to do.
And we ended up doing it this morning. But man, it was so good to talk. Like I loved it. I thought
I'm
it was
straight, man. I am. It's like I said, it's like talking to my mother, like talking to. I feel good now. Like word.
Yeah.
I'm ready, we can start our day. We should have him on a couple days a week.
I feel like I got to go call my mom.
Real, right?
All right. So on that note, Hailey, you want to take us home?
Yeah. Appreciate all y'all in the chat for joining us on this Wednesday morning. I know it's kind of out of the norm, but it was definitely really special for us. We will be live tomorrow night as usual. So yeah, we'll see you tomorrow night. And for now, Jay.
Take it light, but take it.